What's good, y'all? Welcome back to Outside the Clutch. This is going to be a special one. This is something we haven't done before, and it's a first time go with some of the technology of the industry and how using a platform that we have all come to know and love in this industry has made our lives easier as reptile breeders and sellers and I think keepers because you most of us find this website right away and we bring it in and this is how we find our animals if we're not going to our local pet store. So super excited to talk to John Lehmann today of Morphmarket and I think there's going to be some really good stuff that you can get out of this, maybe some help for people like me that aren't exactly tech savvy that we're going to let the guru teach us how to do some stuff. So I'm excited for that. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been watching, everyone that's listening to the audio versions. Each side's taking off. Always appreciate our listeners. You guys are awesome. And we can't do what we do without our sponsors. Here at Outside the Clutch, we're honored to be sponsored by VivTech. Are you ready for innovation? Tired of the same boring product that's been used for 30 years? Ready to give your reptiles and amphibians the UV they really deserve? Then look no farther than VivTech. Their 3-watt LED bulbs provide the UV rays your animals have been missing. With 3 bulbs to fit your pet's climate needs, plus a dimmable feature, it's the only bulbs we use for UV. And it's the only bulb with a 2-year warranty in the industry. Plus now you can monitor all your pet's husbandry from your phone 24/7 with their sensors and even ship your customers' animals in their custom bags. So what are you waiting for? Go to VivTechProducts.com today, use code FCLUTCH0322 for 15% off, and provide your animals the best care they've ever had. Are you ready for the best coconut substrate in the game? Then you gotta get ReptiChip. First off, it's America's chip because it's veteran owned. Secondly, why wouldn't you want the best cocoa chip for your animals? Go to ReptiChip.com, use code FealyChippin for 10% off up to 3 breeder blocks, or your entire order of Easy Hatch trays or any Redline Science equipment on the site. Limit 1 coupon per customer. Or reach out to me as a representative in the El Paso area, and don't forget to join the Reptilution, where all profits go to helping those in need within the reptile community. All right, so without further ado, we're gonna jump right into it, and we're gonna bring on John. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man?
Not too much. Not too much. I'm super excited for this one. I think this has the potential to do a lot of good for a lot of people. I know I've been talking to people locally about this. They're like kind of bouncing questions off of me, and uh, it brought to mind that while we all kind of know what morph market is, we don't necessarily understand all the realms within morph market now because you guys have expanded vastly over the last couple of years.
Yeah, as we were just saying before we started, it's like I was counting on my fingers. Okay, Morphmarket launched 7 years ago. So for somebody who was there at the beginning, when the surface area of our platform was much smaller, it was much more focused. They've been there every year as we've added more and more features, and they kind of learned as they went. But today, for somebody coming in, Morphmarket's got so much stuff, it can feel overwhelming. And as I said, it's our job. It's one thing for us to add new features and systems and make them work correctly and be useful. And it's another thing for us to make them really easy to use and understand, especially if you're brand new and you don't have that experience. So that's our ongoing job as we add new features and functionality. We're always wanting to make things easier to use. And I think that'll, our platform is definitely maturing. And so that will provide, we're going to have more and more bandwidth to come back and simplify and improve those experiences, to get the same features, but just with in a easier way.
Nice, nice, nice. So let's dive into the history of morph market a little bit. Tell us about you and why you chose reptiles of all things.
So a couple things related to how I got into the reptile industry, Morphmarket. one, I would say that I've always loved animals. Growing up, like all that's true for everybody in our industry, right? Growing up, had lots of animals, pets, including some reptiles. And so breeding animals has even been part of my family history, with my going back like multiple generations in agriculture and farm. And my dad bred angelfish. Um, so that's kind of always been part of my family. Um, the second thing, I've kind of always liked to buy and sell things too. Like there's something I've always thought was fun, like even with like a Craigslist type platform, for years, just kind of like to see what's out there and list things for sale and talk to people and all that. So I kind of have that as a second thing. And as a kid, well, as a high schooler, I remember going to a reptile expo, one or two maybe, but I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. I loved the animals, and then I just loved the environment of like all this commerce, the breeding and the acquisition of these beautiful animals. So I like that. And then thirdly, I've been in software since I was in elementary school. And so, which probably nowadays is more commonplace with technology and home computers, but I'm dating myself because back then in elementary school, I don't think most people had PCs or, desktop or computers at home.
I mean, like I remember like having a computer at my grandma's house and like AOL and all that, and like, hey, you got to make sure you're off the internet so we could use the phone or something. But
Exactly.
yeah, that's
Yeah, there was dial up for a bunch of years before the internet really took off. And again, we're dating ourselves, but anyway, so I got started in like writing software from a young age, and then continued that. Did that in college. Have done that for 20 years in my profession. So Morph Market is really the intersection of my love for animals, my interest in buying and selling, and my expertise in software and software products.
so what was kind of your thought process or your basis for bringing Morph Market to fruition? Like, what was the drive to start Morph Market?
The main thing that I found is that it was difficult to find specific animals that I was looking for my projects, with the existing websites at the time, whether those be some of the forum sites, forum classifieds, or Facebook. So when I started, that was the goal, was to make it easy to find specific combos, and not provide something better than like a keyword search over like text ads that had lots of animals in them. So that's kind of where it started. And then over the years, it's just been improving that set of functions, and then adding, as it's become really, a hub for the whole reptile community, adding more services like the events and Morphpedia, things like community, things like that, because hey, we're at people are, our reptile community is meeting there every day. So why not provide more of that functionality to meet other needs, um, for the community.
Um, no, I really like it because you've taken aspects of what we knew in the old with things like King Snake and the other forums, and added that to it on top of always creating something new, which we'll jump into some of those here in a little bit. But how do you think morph markets affected the industry overall, and how do you think it helps people to brand as they're coming in?
I think, if I were to just go off the things that people have told me about what Morph Market has done for them, I would say, number one, Morph Market's been really important to help stabilize prices within the industry. That's the number one thing people use Morph Market, even if they don't sell in Morph Market, breeders still come and they use it to help price their animals.
Right.
And we'll add more features in the future to make that even easier. And secondly, it's been said that Morph Market has helped add and it helped increase the professionalism of our industry by having something like that. People who might, not think positively of, if we were like, oh, we're snake breeders,
Right.
a lot of people would be like, huh? Like that's really weird. But then they come and they see something like Morph Market that's, modern, and it adds a lot of credibility, I think, to the whole industry. Um, Also, during the last few years, of course, COVID has impacted everybody's life, and thankfully we're kind of coming out of that, or have come out of that. But but I had a lot of breeders tell me that more, and I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily say this myself, but they said, hey, Morphmarket saved the industry because during those years we couldn't have expos, and so we couldn't sell the way we normally did. So that's great to have been a part of that. And similarly, I've had one of my favorite things that I ever hear is when a breeder will. I've had a few breeders tell me, thank you for creating Morphmarket because of your platform and the ability to sell there. I was able to quit my day job, and I'm pursuing my dream now, being a full-time breeder. So it's like, man, that I love to share that kind of feedback with my team. We're all encouraged by that, to know that we've made major life. And of course, that's not everybody, but there are some people who've had their lives impacted in a really positive way like that.
So how big is the Morphmarket team now? Because when it first started, it was just you, and you were kind of doing it all, right?
Yeah, it was just me for the first 5 years, and I had a day job. My wife helped me a little bit doing with the customer success, but that was, here and there. But that was hard. Those were hard years, bootstrapping the business. And of course, I didn't know what it would become, and I didn't. I mean, if I knew then what I know now, I would have quit my job years before. But it took time to grow. So the team these days, you can go on Morphmarket/about, and you can actually see profiles of our team. But there are about 10 full-time people working on the team, and that's mostly developers. And then it includes also our customer success team, which is three people plus me, and then additionally some like marketing designer type folks as well.
Nice.
So it's more than 10, but it's about 10 full-time equivalent.
Okay. So you recently added more regions like Mexico. How do you think the launch of these new regions is going to bring a new dynamic to not only those areas, but also for us in North America that now have connections to reach out to those other regions?
Yeah, I think the benefit for North America, I mean, for one thing, the redoing of the regions that we'd had since 2019 maybe is when we added Europe, and we added South Africa. And the way we redid regions is much more flexible and hierarchical, meaning you can have, you can look at the whole world, or you can look at like Europe, or you can look at UK versus EU, so you can kind of drill down in, and eventually we'll have on a country by country basis. So it's much more flexible. But for the US, I mean, I think the more that the rest of the world is in the reptile industry, it benefits especially the higher end breeders who are able to export animals, right? So it helps them. Um, and then of course it helps areas like Mexico that have a new and growing industry. It helps accelerate that as well. So, and ultimately, I think that feeds back. The more people in Mexico and other areas of the world there are in the trade, the more imports and exports there can be. And I mean, there's probably a lot of positive side effects of that, but that's the one I think that's the most
Oh,
obvious.
100%. Like I know all the people with master CITES are probably like biting at the, what is it? Nipping at the bridle or whatever you call it for horses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Going crazy just waiting. I know with me being in El Paso, so one of the hubs that opened up with Miguel is literally 15 minutes away from my house. But I have to get a CITES permit to like it's crazy in my mind, but it's amazing how it's gonna revolutionize things in my eyes, because it's giving you the opportunity to one, open a whole new market, and those guys are doing amazing things in Mexico already. But the fact that like someone like me or someone else locally here in El Paso could just get their master CITES and become one of the distributors to go down in there and make it so
Mm-hmm.
much easier, and that opens a whole new basis for a company here for anyone. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, so in all of that, you're not just expanding breeding, but you're expanding the ability to open different platforms for everybody across the world,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty freaking amazing. And it's like mind boggling to me, but I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. Um,
Yeah, and I think the more it's like the indirect effect is by providing the whole platform in Mexico. I mean, even without a Mexican region, for example, like people in Mexico could still be importing animals.
right.
They could be shopping on Morph Market, right, and contacting breeders and all that. But by creating the Mexico region and giving the breeders there a place to sell their animals, well, now they can, if they can sell their animals, they can buy animals, and then they can work their way up, build their collection up, and upgrade it. And also, I think it makes it easier for them to sell their animals locally because then it provides a place that all those people, it's the people that are just coming into the hobby there to go look at Morph Market, both the Mexican region as well as other regions, to get excited about it and to jump in the hobby themselves. So it all builds, together.
I think it's pretty exciting, man. So I remember when I first came in and you start looking into content and you come into the community and like I remember the days where even with King Snake, like King Snake was around, but if you wanted stuff, you went to expos or you reached out to the breeder through mail and all that good stuff, right? And I remember going to an expo in high school, which oh god, long time ago, but it wasn't what you see now. Like the way the industry's changed over the years has been amazing to watch and evolve. And I wish I was a part of it longer than I have been again, but I think watching that and seeing that excitement in new places and the ability for everyone to come together in one place is super exciting. And I appreciate you for taking the time because obviously it's hours upon hour, well, years at this point of just like long sleepless nights and bringing it all together and writing code and all of that. So I applaud you for having the patience to do that, sir. Um, with that being said, you have released a whole bunch of different services over the last, I'd say, year and a half. So
Mm-hmm.
let's dive into some of those a little bit. I think it was about just over a year ago you launched Morphpedia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we had talked about it, and we were talking about how to like really bring it forward
Mm-hmm.
around Tinley, and we never got that opportunity, unfortunately. But this is our opportunity now, and I'm super excited about that. So, what was the mindset behind Morphpedia, and where have you seen it kind of expand to as it's
Mm-hmm.
gone in the last year?
Yeah. So Morphpedia is that concept had been something that our team had talked about for years. And specifically, I would say a lot of the folks that help with our community forums, like we'd had a lot of discussions there. I would say Matt Huck in particular is a friend who he and I kind of shared that vision together. Really since, gosh, it might be like 2016 or around then. Um, but yeah, the idea was to have us, you could go into different species and find resources online, right? That would be good. It might be for ball pythons, you had World of Ball Pythons. For leopard geckos, there was a wiki. You have different breeders, some breeders, and I can think of in boas and leopard geckos that have like good information on their website. But again, it's so much better to have all that information in a single spot. So that's bringing all that information together. And Morphpedia is not, we don't care to be the primary source. We are drawing on the expertise of the whole community. So we're big into citations, putting information from other resources and citing, so you can kind of, just like Wikipedia, you can go read, but then if you really want to know and go deeper, you want to go look at those references and read the primary source documents. So you've got that aspect, and then you've got the community review aspect, because some of the other, well, really none of the other resources, well, let me back up and say, so with Morphpedia, it's not quite like Wikipedia where anybody can go and edit an article. That works pretty well for Wikipedia, but partly because there's so many people invested in monitoring and checking and all that. So we don't have it totally open like that for edits. But what we do have, and a lot of people don't know this, we need to make the link more prominent. But on the Morphpedia pages on the primary site, there's links to contribute. If you click on those links, it goes over to the community forums, and there you will find the actual source document, the actual document we edit, which gets every night posted to the main Morphpedia site. So the significance here is that anybody can go and leave essentially a public comment about a correction or an addition that they think should go into that article. And then our editors will incorporate that feedback into the articles. I mean, that's where there's some oversight and kind of checking, but that information gets incorporated there. But that also creates in the forums an opportunity for there to be a discussion, because about things that are not obvious, or maybe there's disagreement. And so it's a very transparent public discussion about it. And I think that's really important, as opposed to just people email us information, we just paste it in there. Like, nobody knows what's going on or how we arrived at that. So I really like that there's a place for those rich discussions and debates on where they need to be.
Can kind of be a double-edged sword with this community too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, it's got that. So it's kind of the bringing all together. There's the way we source the information and maintain it and discuss it. So you have that history. And then I would say also just the fact that they're pretty rich. Like, it's not just like on some sites where there's like a bunch of photos, and a couple facts, and that's basically it. Like, if you've seen Morphpedia, like, it's pretty rich. It has lots of facts. There's linking, there's cross-linking all over the place. So like, where you can click on, in many cases, the founder of that Morph or Gene actually is on Morphmarket, so you can click and go right to their store. So it's all interconnected. We've even got one chart at the bottom, and over time we'd like to add more, showing kind of marketplace metrics about that. And we have the one that shows availability of this gene, so you can see over time like how many ads have been posted. And then of course you have a lot about the history and any controversy, description, related genes and traits and combos, all that's there. So it's I would say it's very rich in terms of the amount of content that's there, not just a couple facts. Okay. And that wouldn't be possible. I mean, it's a lot of information, and we can't do that on our own. We launched it with, there was a critical mass we needed. We launched it a year ago with 50 articles about ball python morphs. And today, actually, as of a few months ago, I don't even know where it's at right now, we're over 500 articles on, like, I think around 25 different species. So that's awesome, the other thing. Of course, it's having all the species in one spot.
Like, I remember when we were just talking ball pythons on it, and it was like, well, we want to integrate this. And so the fact within a year, you've not only done the morphs within ball pythons, which seems to be ever evolving as well, but able to jump into multiple species. That's huge. That's freaking amazing.
We had Don Soder. We're definitely would welcome more help there. Both, I mean, anybody can contribute, but then certainly at the editorial level, I would say if somebody's interested in becoming an editor, they don't have to be an expert, but they would need to be an expert at moderate, like knowing kind of the discernment of being able knowing how to edit those articles. But certainly would welcome expertise. So, for example, Don Soderberg, who's an expert in corn snakes, has written books. Like, he's now one of our editors in the corn snakes area. So hopefully over time we'll get more. Experts are contributing, and we vet the information by experts. But having more experts directly involved in the process would be great too.
Heck yeah, that's awesome, man. So let's dive into another one of your services. Something everyone's getting very hyped about, but like I said earlier, this community is very double-edged sword. Some people love it, some people are very nervous about it, which understandably so, with it being a new service. And that's your partnership with RDI and the genetic testing. So what kind of brought that about with the partnership, and where do you think it's really going to propel this industry moving forward?
Yeah, so Ben and Sean, the owners of RGI, reached out to me, this year, and it's something I had heard about, but honestly, I hadn't done enough digging into the topic. I was very interested in it, in the last year, but they reached out and they're like, "Hey, we've heard we need software. We need you to help us build, a portal." And I'm like, "We could do more than that. This is an amazing service. We want to help promote it." And so we started talking and ironed out all the features that we would need. And, it certainly, it has benefits, all the way from, of course, the testing to be able to accelerate your projects. I think that's the biggest thing, not have to wait years to prove out your hets. But even for the average keeper that you go to, not that I would necessarily recommend, but you go to a Pet Smart, buy an animal and you want to know if it's a boy or girl so you can have it sexed. Where that's certainly not a hard thing for a breeder to do, but many people may not know someone who could do that for them. So there's all kinds of utility in the actual tests, and then getting stuff, integrating that into Morphmarket and the animal management system is something that's going to be developing throughout the year. Having that information that animal was tested, on the associated with that animal, is beneficial. But at the end of the day, like, if the test is most useful for you, whether it's you want to know how to price your animal so you know what it is, or you just bought an animal and you want to make sure it is what you were told it was. So I think that that's the
100%.
biggest impact. Now, as far as, how's it going to affect the industry? That's $1 million question. You can think about, there's the obvious initial benefits, but then there's the secondary effects. Like, um, what does that do when we accelerate all of our recessive projects? And I've heard some interesting debates from people who know more about this than me, truthfully. But it's sort of an inevitable, as someone said, this was an inevitability. So we just kind of have to adapt, and the industry's going to adapt. And I could see where, if I were a breeder who had already had all my visual recessives, and breeding program going, and the time for others to catch up to my where I'm at, um, was sort of a moat that I had, and an advantage that
Right.
I had, then I could see a little disappointment there. But hopefully the testing will help them accelerate to their next projects as well.
100%. And I think it's important to bring up the fact that it's not just genetic testing. Like, they run a full panel on stuff. So there's other things that you can do within this testing that we haven't touched yet. One with like the because it is within the blood, you could do like disease checking within that panel, all kinds of different things. I think it's
Hmm.
really important if we want to be viewed as a legitimate industry to have things like that in the process, because it shows that we as an industry are taking the steps to further solidify being upfront and correct business.
Hmm.
But
Absolutely, yeah. The testing is super valuable for, checking health, and checking for viruses. And also another one that RGI's talked about doing in the future is identity. I forget what they call it, like relatedness checking or purity checking. So, as we tend to line breed our animals, they can do tests to tell you how line bred they are. And so maybe over time we can use that, to know when we need to outbreed, instead of inbreeding further. So that's another example. And I think there's even several other kinds of tests that they can develop as well. But
and
I
see,
think
that's
they've
one
got.
one of the things I didn't think about, man. Like, you hear it all the time, but you think about it, someone may work the same bloodline for so long, and maybe that's why you're starting to see, like, we've never put it to that, but that could put a actual, like, scientific proof that, hey, we've inbred this bloodline so long, this is creating that shark jaw or creating these defects that we've just said is chance up to this point. You know what I mean?
Mhm,
That
mhm. Yeah, it is a
so
whole other dimension in terms of the health of the animal. Another kind of testing is like, which is related to the morph testing, but it's locality testing, and that's something that would be really useful in some species like reticulated pythons, and a number of others. But they have to have those sheds. They have to have the sheds of the animals in the wild from those locations, and then they can develop tests to tell you, um, how related they are, how similar they are to those wild animals.
how much do you think that's gonna reclassify things? Because if you're looking at it at that basis, that's gonna create the fact that like we already have like reticulatus, and then obviously the subspecies of each, right? And it seems like every few years, regardless, in every species, we're seeing reclassification of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to change a lot of things.
And what
I'm
if you
excited
could?
to see where it is. I know some people may be skeptical. What would you say to those that are kind of fighting against it right now to kind of ease their minds into it?
I mean, just like I said before, I think there's certain, technologies that change the world, obviously in much greater ways than the reptile hobby. But we can't. I mean, you can't stop them. So it's best to figure out how to adapt and incorporate that into your business, into your hobby. Yeah, I was going to say another thing, John. Another thing that came to my mind was it's related to, well, I mentioned reticulated python. So imagine a test, and mainland breeders may not like this, but imagine a test that you could then tell how basically how big this animal is going to grow. I think that could really promote the breeding of the super dwarfs, and distinguish it between what's really a super dwarf and what's not, or a dwarf in the
Oh,
mainland.
you mean I can't just throw two things together and say it's 40%, so I could call it a super dwarf, even though it's still
Exactly.
going to hit 16 or 18 feet?
Yeah, Garrett says you can't do that.
um, so let's talk about another feature that came up around the same time. I think you actually released this a couple months before, and that's your shipping service with Redline.
Hmm.
So what kind of brought the shipping? Because it seems like you guys are trying to become the total package, which is great. I'm not harping on that at all. I think it's wonderful for everyone within the industry. Obviously, we all choose our own companies that we like to work with. But what brought you to pulling a shipping service in, and what do you think it's going to do to benefit the Morph Market customer base?
Yeah, great question. I mean, so some people may or may not be aware, but we were already promoting another shipping company for the last 3 years. So actually promoting Redline didn't we actually weren't adding significant, we weren't really changing um, our position, if you will, in terms of having a shipping partner, right? We already had a shipping partner. We changed, not because the other company's bad in any way. We just chose to begin supporting Redline. In fact, when we started promoting, it was Ship Your Reptiles. My first relationship with Robin. So in a way, it's a continuation of that relationship with Redline. And in terms of what it, the other thing I'll say is, and I've made this clear, but the fact that Morphmarket promotes and recommends Redline is, again, there are other great shipping companies too, and so we're not saying those are bad, and no, we're not in any way going to impede any of our, no, our sellers are not certainly not required to use Redline, and we won't ever add features that that somehow block their ability to use our platform, right? We promote it. We promote Redline. We think they're a great service. They've got decades of experience. We love their online platform. We think it's a really smooth experience, and we know their customer services. Again, has a lot of experience, and they're a great team that will provide great service. When you in those moments when you need it, and they provide great rates, and they're in a position to provide very, very competitive rates with the other companies. And of course, with shipping prices going up, that's really important. So we like Redline a lot, and we promote them. And down the road, we plan to add the ability for, so we're working on orders and payments through the website. It's going to streamline the whole process for buyers and sellers and have a lot of benefits. And on the tail end of that, we want to add shipping so that any breeder can print their shipping label straight off Morphmarket, by us integrating with the shipping providers. So to the extent that I want to integrate with all the major shipping providers, so hopefully we'll be able to do that, and then it'll service all of our most of our sellers who use those services can benefit from that. And again, one-stop shop, save you time. We know every minute's precious, so that's kind of where we want to head with the shipping stuff.
So you talked about the payments, and I wasn't sure how to approach that. I honestly didn't even know if I wanted to approach that because that's it's gonna be it's interesting, at least to me. Like I don't know how to put this in better terms. It's interesting. I think that with the way that we as breeders have put out and had to deal with like PayPal and things like that, and then you worry about back charges or customer saying, "Hey, well, I didn't receive this," or things like that. You guys have been very forward and very helpful on both sides, very, very open, and showing that you're not necessarily taking one side or the other, but you're here to protect everybody, which is
Hmm.
extremely important. And I think having the payment roll through you is one taking a huge liability on Morph Market's part, but I appreciate you for taking that liability. But two, it's also going to provide almost a safe haven for both the customer and the breeder selling that animal to solidify that sale. What was your thought process in adding that, and what kind of drove it forward with what you were seeing and hearing from the breeders and customers?
Hmm. Well, again, we want to provide a as smooth of an efficient of an experience as possible, right? So that's part of it. It's just the ability for buyer and seller to kind of go through that process and save time, have everything in one place. So that's one goal. Um, Initially, we were looking to, and it's possible we still will integrate with Square, right? And a lot of our sellers use Square, and for the most part, I do hear the opposite sometimes, but for the most part, PayPal has been the bad, the bad one, and Square not so much. But I've heard it both ways too. In any case, so if we use Square, that would probably work pretty well. However, we're looking at using a different, or we're working to integrate with a different service that will allow us to provide at least as good of rates, and it will more importantly allow us to be involved in the arbitration of a dispute. And so people, I think most listeners probably are aware that on Morph Market, when you buy and sell to date, you pretty much do that part offline. And so when there are problems, we absolutely get involved and help to arbitrate the dispute. However, what we cannot do, we can't make money go back. We can try to influence the buyer and or seller to do that, to do the right thing, and up until the point of banning users from our site if we find that they ought to do something and they refuse to do so. Um, but we can't make money go back, and so by being involved in the payment process, that should give us more control. So as it is today, it's like the big tech card processor. They're the ones that decide ultimately, and sadly, we've already put in many cases hours of time into researching the situation, figure out, and it's hard in a lot of cases, figure out what happened and if there's a clear not resolution, but a clear thing that needs to happen. And but we're not, they don't really listen to us, so we're not able to
Right.
help users with the credit. We can give them information, but in many cases they don't care what we have to say. So yeah, it's really nice that if we're going to do all the work to figure things out, that we could then have a little more influence over making things right. And another thing is this service we're looking at and trying to use has escrow. And while escrow may not be something that's I imagine that's a service that's it's buyers would want escrow more than sellers. I mean, a seller, you want the money right in your bank and with no, cash. But for buyers, I see this being especially useful with new sellers on our site. Now, we don't have a lot of scams on our site. However, when they do, they're typically with brand new sellers that have no track record, no ratings or anything, and unsuspecting, uneducated buyers will just go and send their money
We're gonna
over.
get to that. Sorry, I
For
had to. I'm sorry. I hope I didn't throw you off. I was like, "Hi, no ratings. Come rate
Yeah,
me."
yeah, 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 this guy. But at least you're not a brand new seller. Like it'll be like an account that was created last week, and we have, flags on. We put up warnings on these accounts for the first at least month. They say this is a new seller. Doesn't mean they're bad, but generally we don't recommend if you're a new buyer, don't buy from a new seller. If you're a discerning, experienced buyer, sure, go check them out. You know how. But if you're brand new, it's not a good idea to buy from anybody on the internet without reputation. So when we have lots of guides and documentation about how to go about this. But bottom line, we flagged anyway. What I would really like is that for some period of time for a new seller, they're going to be required to use escrow, and that way you can't just sign up and in the next week get get a couple payments and then just adios.
Just bounce
It's going to
ship and
be, yeah,
disappear.
exactly. We're gonna have that money sit for a bit and make sure that animals are delivered and all that. When there's a situation when there's two people disagreeing, it can be hard to tell what the truth is. But when we have like multiple on one side, that's where it's more clear, what's going on. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to that system. I mean, there's other benefits like you just mentioned, John, that you don't have any ratings right now. Like, in fact, I'll share my screen and we'll just jump over to your Morphmarket page.
It'll look like a noob. Just kidding.
You look like a noob. Sorry. So window, there we go. All right. So if we go, if we're on Morphmarket homepage, you just type in Fealy. You're a member, so you're in our store directory. We can jump right over your page. And you signed up as a seller in March 2020. So that's good. Like, you've been around for a while. You didn't create this, last week. And if you scam people, you'd already be gone. Got a lot of good contact info, supporting USARK. That's awesome. But you don't have any ratings yet. So what was I going to say about ratings? So another benefit of orders and payments through the site. And by the way, we don't plan to require that you have to use our system. You don't have to use whatever we provide. You could still use Square, PayPal, whatever you want.
Right.
At least in the general case, maybe not if you're a new seller. But one thing that this system will also do, I think, is provide better rails to run on in terms of a process. Because right now, the way ratings happen is when you sell the animal, you mark it as sold, they get a message that invites them to rate you. But then if they kind of like ignore that email or don't see it, they move on, and you can bug them. They may or may not. But we want to have we'll have a lot more pages on Morphmarket. Your customers, we'll have your orders, and we can have sort of a status for every order we purchase, and we can say, leave a rating, and we can kind of bug either party. We also want sellers to rate their buyers more because that's useful information for the other sellers. So we can, with these extra pages, we'll be able to kind of guide that process better. And that will help you get some ratings. I know you've sold some stuff on Morphmarket, but we need to convert those happy buyers over to raters, and we need to get some listings up on your page too.
That's the joy of being sold out. I'm just saying, that's the joy of being sold out.
So you don't have listings
until I make more babies.
You don't have listings, but you can have some more content on your page, because we look over at John Daig's page, for example. In addition to having posted in our forums, and so we could look over here and see, what John's talked about, friendly fraud. You kind of brought that up earlier. Kind of see he's got some knowledge and contributing to the community. But also, okay, you don't have any listings, but you can put your breeders up on Morphmarket and have your collection shown there. So you can have that.
Think about that. Yeah.
You can jump over and see, John doesn't have pictures on all those animals, but he has animals uploaded. And then we already have offspring groups, which is another thing we added in the last year. So you could have all of your clutch history here as well, your clutches and their offspring. And you can check these out, and you get to see photos of the clutch. You get lineage, which goes straight to the ads once they're listed for sale. And, John's already, look, they're going quick. John's already got most of these sold, a few on hold. And when animals are listed for sale, you've got that mom and dad listed right there, as well as the clutch they're in. So there's more content we can get up on your page to.
So it's almost like you brought up Husbandry Pro earlier, and there's, what's the other one? Reptile Scan, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the new upcoming with Justin with Clutch. But it's almost like you're integrating in all of it. So you'll have the full history. You'll have everything. So obviously something that everyone wants to kind of build. I haven't done a well part, and I got called out for it right now, which is fine. That's great. I need it sometimes. But I think it's very well rounded, and you've done a very excellent job of making sure you're thinking about each portion of the industry and bringing it together. Um, how do you think that it's contributing to a better experience, not only in Morph Market, but to every person coming in? And what can the everyday person kind of contribute back to Morph Market to
Mhm.
help make it better?
Yeah, I think that, as a platform, when people tell their friends, "Hey, I know you're into reptiles, man. You come over. They come over to your house. You show them your amazing animals, and you're like, hey, go check out Morph Market. And you can learn a lot of stuff, kind of see what the industry looks like, see amazing animals, but not just that. You can go learn about the animals, Morphpedia. You can read about all these, different traits. You can find out what events are happening near you, so you can go to some expos in person and talk to breeders face to face, check out animals. That's just an experience. Like you can't replicate that online. So there's always a place for that. So we help you find those. You can find breeders near you, not just the animals themselves, but with the store directory. Um, it can better their experience by, um, we have just content on, um, like we have a whole new support site, support.morphmarket.com. So you can learn things about how to ship reptiles. When do I use a heat pack? We're not loading up on husbandry type information, but we're having more and more information there about, that's useful to keepers. So yeah, I think that we contribute to the average user by providing them with just a wide array of information to learn about the hobby and the people in the hobby and the animals in the hobby and all that stuff. As far as what they contribute back, of course, community forums as well. I mean, certainly you can go on Facebook and find lots of reptile groups. We have our own Morphmarket community forums. We like that because Mark's not in control of them. He didn't shut down our groups and pages, and that content's there forever, and it's indexed by search crawlers, so they can be located. And um, there's so much good community knowledge that has been put into Facebook. Has been put. I mean, a lot of it's garbage, right? But um, there's so much good information there too. But unfortunately, you can't find it. It's the way it's
Right.
organized in a social media platform. You just can't really find stuff. So
The good
what?
definitely gets washed out with all the regular BS that comes up.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, there's a place for that for sure. Just having fun and but yeah, when you want to like record like knowledge, I think you need a different platform than a social media site. So yeah, the community forums are great. What can someone who's brand new do to contribute? Yeah, get involved in the community forums and ask questions and learn, and read the Morphpedia articles and contribute. Maybe you don't have a fact to contribute, but you could say, hey, there's a typo here, or ask a question, say this is unclear, so you can help provide feedback that would make that content better, and just learn and grow, enjoy.
I like it, man. So one of the other things is obviously like me, I look for sponsors at times. What do you look in for those people that help sponsor Morph Market? And if someone were to kind of think about doing that, what would be the avenue for them to do such?
So you're saying like a podcast or
Well, like a
any.
podcast or like a store, like so say someone that's built up in the industry and they said, "Hey, I would like to help sponsor Morph Market just to make sure it gets pushed forward." How do they reach out, or how would they set up that process if they wanted to?
Are you talking about being like the type of sponsor that we would pay them money like on a monthly basis
No,
to promote?
I'm not saying like you sponsoring
Mhm.
them. I'm saying them reaching out and
Oh,
like
just support.
trying to
Like how can people?
contribute and build and sponsor
Oh
more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just help contribute. Yeah, help push it forward. Well, I'd say the first of all, use it. and learn what's there. But you don't have to stop there. Like if you already love Morphmarket and what we're doing, you already know enough. So share it with your friends. We're doing more advertising now, but we have grown through word of mouth, and our community's tight. And so, you know, talk to your friends about it, get them on it. The more people that are there, the more valuable it is. It's a network. So I think share it online, share it in person. Um, Learn and make use of all the features. Get your collection up there, get your clutches in the system. It just adds more content for the whole community. To people may see you're working on a project that they also are working on, and then they're going to want to like talk to you at the next expo or online or whatever. So yeah, I think those are a couple things. Also, you could get some merch if you want to. We don't really make much money on the merch. It's not for profit so much as it is for you to be able to enjoy the brand, and then you can show off that you show off the brand as well. So that'd be something else you could do.
What about those? So you brought it up with the merch, the collab shirts. Where did those come from?
Yeah. So, and by the way, the merch, you can go to shop.morphmarket.com. That's where you can go to find merch. But yeah, the collab projects, we started with Bob Vu, and I don't remember if it was Bob's idea or not, but it might have been. He's a great idea guy. It'd be like, hey, it'd be cool to have. We're just brainstorming. We did the original merch, and then we thought it'd be cool to like have other kind of more just different diversity in terms of the offering. And so the collab projects are brands that we know. We won't do a collab with anybody, but if we know you or if you've established enough of a reputation in the Morph Market or feel comfortable, then basically we'll help you create your usually it's shirts, but we've done other stuff too. The way the process works, my designer will actually work with you, mock up some stuff, and then we'll help get through the printing, ship everything to you, pretty much give it to you at cost, and for you to be able to give or sell to your fans. So it helps us because we get our name out there more, and it's helps some breeders because it just kind of takes that process off their plate as well. So yeah, you can go to the shop.morphmarket.com and you can go into shirts and you can see a lot of the collab projects we've done. We've done a few dozen of them now. So
Yeah, I just got done hanging out with Chris, and I saw his collab shirt, Chris McDougal, and
mm,
then I received one from Alyssa from Full Throttle, and
mhm.
I freaking love that purple shirt. It's very nice.
I get lots of requests. Well, I get a few very vocal requests for purple, and then we got a purple hat, and we hardly sold them. So
Oh
people
man,
that love purple love it, but then nobody else does. It seems like. But yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun. All the
everything's
colors
hit or
and
miss. It has a season and a time, man. It's weird. So let's kind of wrap it up. I know you're a busy man and you got code to write and customers to keep happy. This is kind of how I like to end all my podcasts, and it's what advice would you give to someone just getting into the industry to kind of help them set up for success?
mhm. Well, I'd say first, of course, kind of the baseline would be know the animals, know how to take care of them. You know, that's sort of a given that you're going to educate yourself and use best practices there. But from a business point of view, I would say buy like meet people, like build relationships because in our industry, relationships are so important. Make friends, you know, bless people, give to people and build, in order to put deposits in those relationships. And then buy animals from breeders that are reputable. And it doesn't mean they're the big breeder or like they're the best known, but like just, as some you have confidence that they're making high quality animals, and not just that, but that they're gonna like support you, maybe even mentor you along the way. Because there are great reputable breeders, but they don't have time for that. So make sure that, I mean, that's a huge, that's something that you don't necessarily see in a Morph Market ad, like what kind of service you might get afterward. I mean, maybe you see that in the ratings, in the comments people leave there. That'd be a good place to read and research that. But yeah, that's a great opportunity. When you buy that animal, you're getting more than just the animal. You're getting a relationship, and that relationship could be very minimal or it could be very rich. So I think that would be a way to really to invest wisely. And then don't take shortcuts. Like, it's tempting to take shortcuts. You want to have a brand that looks sharp. So get a good logo, um, and whatever you invest in, your racks, whatever it is, of course, the animals, do it well. I mean, everybody says quality is their differentiator, but it's, there's truth in that. But you want that. You want to establish that baseline, because then you're going to be building from it. And it's not so easy when you get down the road to go back and redo all of that. Put thought into your name. You could be, John's Reptiles, and that's fine. Like, that would work. But like, if you put more thought into it, by the time you set up your Morphmarket page and your branding, and you told people, on Facebook and all that, like, you're not going to want to go redo that. So put the time into that. Try to be a little more creative. And then, even if you're not selling animals right now, maybe you've got some breeding animals, you're getting some more, they're growing up to size. Like, you can go on Morphmarket even without having a selling account, and you can already put your animals into the animal manager. So that will start to give you experience in how the site works, learning those features, so that one day you don't have to learn everything. Not that it's necessarily hard, but like, people learn different rates. Like, you're already familiar with how that works. And then as soon as you can, try to make some sales on Morphmarket. You don't have to do all your sales there, but the benefit is that you get sales online like that, you can get ratings, right? And those are going to build up over time. And so that will help your online reputation with people that wouldn't otherwise know you. And then something else, to go back, maybe the last thing, what we said earlier, it's like, utilize the genetic testing. Right now there's RGI can do 11 morph tests, and they're going to have hopefully 30 in a year. So you can really use that to your advantage to accelerate your projects, if you want to get into especially recessives. So I think that's definitely something I would be looking at as a new breeder.
All right, awesome, John. I appreciate it. I know you got a lot to do. I hope y'all got some knowledge today. You got excited about Morphmarket. There's always new stuff coming out, so make sure you're watching John's Facebook. You're watching Morphmarket and what they're doing with new products all the time. It's like we said, it can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's all for the good. So take the time to learn it. Be better than I was. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, John. Bye.